Hey guys, if you shoot in Nikon Log and you want to take your footage from this to this, I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to cover the project settings that you're going to need, and I'm also going to cover how to create two nodes that are really simple to make, and then that will really bring your footage to life. Okay guys, so our video footage is on the timeline. First thing we're going to do is go down to the bottom right hand corner, go to your project settings, then click on color management. Set your color signs to DaVinci YRGB, timeline color space, DaVinci Y Gamma Intermediate, and I'm going to use output color space Rec 709 Gamma 2.2 because this is going to be delivered on YouTube. If you're going to be doing this for TV, use Gamma 2.4, and then go down to our lookup tables and set them to tetrahedral. This gives you better dynamic range for log footage, and then save when you're done. Click on your clip, go into the color page, and then we've got our nodes up here. Press Alt and S to add a new node. Right click on the first one, node label, call this CST In. Right click on the second one, node label, CST Out. Open up your effects panel, in the search, do a search for color space transform. And then drag it onto the CST In and drag another one onto the CST Out. And we should see each one has got a little symbol on it. Select your CST In and then make sure your effects panel's open here so you can see this. Input color space, we're going to go for Rec 2020. Input gamma, we're going to search for N-Log. Then output color space is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut. Output gamma is going to be DaVinci Wide Intermediate. And that's all we need to do on the CST In. On the CST Out, input color space is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut. Input gamma is going to be DaVinci Intermediate. Output color space is going to be Rec 709. And then our output gamma, I'm going to go with Gamma 2.2 because that's for YouTube. But if you're going for TV, use Gamma 2.4. And boom, look at that. So we started here. And right now it's looking like that, which is looking really accurate. Now that we've got our footage into the correct color space, we're going to tweak it a little bit more. So we're going to create a couple of nodes, grab your CST out and just move it over so it's out of the way or even down here. Click on your CST In, and then we're going to press Alt and S a couple of times to add some nodes. So that's going to be exposure, you're going to have white balance, contrast, and then we have a spare one for extra grading. I'm just going to go ahead and label these. First one's going to be called exposure, EXP for short. Then we have white balance, WB. Contrast, and then this one I'm going to do some little tweaks on. So what I like to do is highlight this group, and I'm just going to bring them down a bit so we've got our CST in there, CST out, so it's a bit neater to work with. First I'm going to go on to exposure. It's looking a little bit dark on here, so I'm going to go into my HDR color wheels because this just gives you better exposure control, and I'm just going to bring the exposure up ever so slightly. So we can see down in our scopes down here, it's lifting up the shadows off the bottom and it's not blowing anything out at the top. You don't want to go below 0 and you don't want to go above 1023. Generally on the white balance, I've got my camera calibrated to 5600 Kelvin and my lights are 5600 Kelvin, so everything should match perfectly. As we can see in my vector scopes, my white balance is pretty much perfect. We got the reds looking good, green and the blue are really well balanced. If you needed to adjust this, you could just kind of play around on the gain wheel. You see how it's affecting it and making big movements. So ideally you want to do lots of little movements just to try and get those leveled out a little bit. Or you could use a temper tint. I'm just going to reset this because I'm quite happy with where it's at the moment. Then we're going to go into contrast. I'm going to set my pivot point to 0.335 because that's ideal for sort of DaVinci Wide Gamut and Rec 709. And what I tend to do is I just add what we call a little S-curve. So I'll put a marker there and a little dot here where the end of this waveform is. And by lifting this, because it's boosting the darker areas, so you could kind of play around with your contrast to get a really good look. Depends what you wanted. So if you wanted it quite dark, you could bring this down a little bit. If you want to disable it, see how it looked before, press Command D. Or if you want to reset it, you can reset the node grade back to normal. So contrast, don't need to touch that too much. And moving on, we've got the last node. What I'm going to do is on this one, I'm going to press Alt P a couple of times and create some parallel nodes. So what it's doing, it's taking a really good signal. So we're starting here and our grade is living in this area and our output's here. What I could do with this is, say for instance, I want to improve the look of my skin. I could go over to the effects. If I type in a search for beauty, because I'm pretty ugly, I can drag this onto this node and it's going to soften out my skin. Close the effects window. So this is the before. If I turn it off, turn it on, you can see our graph's moving ever so slightly. Now colours are slightly adjusting. That's off, that's on. So it's just softening out my skin. So you can do little things like that on these nodes here, and just make sure whenever you do that, you give it a label. And this is where you could do like little tweaks. So you might want to think, oh, you know what? What's it look like with a vignette on it? Drag a vignette onto the node, and then you can obviously adjust the size of it. Play around with the settings and the softness. Add vignette as a title. So yeah, you could add lots of extra layers here. So you can see there, it's bringing out subject a bit, but it's also sort of darkening out the background. So you can play around with that. That's where I do these sorts of tweaks in the parallel nodes, or if I want to isolate a specific color. But other than that, that's the basics of node grading with N-Log. Before you go, guys, you can get a free project file from DaVinci It's got timelines, it's got color grading nodes built into it and all sorts of presets. So it's well worth the download. And if you found this useful, leave a comment below, hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. Well, if you didn't like it, hit that dislike twice, and thanks for watching.